Yo, we back in here, yo. Welcome to Slide TV where everything's possible. I'll go by the name of Icy Rated Dawn Louis Vuitton. Man. We got a lot of stuff going on out there right now. We got 50 talking about buying Jim Jones' whole facility. Talking about he owed money. But, you know, we're going to go into Slide TV today. We got right here. Meet the Shiesty family, man. The gangsters, the mother and the father who brought Pooh Shiesty to this world. I want to go into he home, man. It's a lot of new Max B home. It's a lot. We're going to get back to that 50. Everybody's talking about the 50. Man, we like to, get it all in. But right here, I want to go on today's on Pooh Shiesty.
Ferragamo Gucci around my way. Henny on me, feel it in my face. Can't forget 145 since I was made. Young and I was running from the Jakes, bitch. Ferragamo Gucci around my waist, bitch. Henny on me, feel it in my face, bitch. Can't forget one.
Yo, shout out to the Knicks. The Knicks got that cup, NBA cup last night, which they got about 525,000 each player, one or more, but it's up there. That's what they got for winning that. Shout out New York City. That's it. Yeah, talk about it. We're in the building early. Oh, let's see what this is about, man.
What happens when a family of real street gangsters and kingpins raises the next generation? When your father is known as Mob Boss, a certified kingpin who built his own record label while running trap houses across Memphis. When your bloodline carries the weight of murder cases, federal drug charges, and a reputation that makes grown men move different in the streets, this is the story of the Williams family, better known as the Shiesty clan. A family so deep in the game that when their youngest son, Pooh Shiesty, started rapping about robbing ops and sliding on them, he wasn't just creating music. He was documenting a lifestyle passed down through generations. From Mob Boss's rise as one of Memphis's most feared kingpins to his gangsta-ass mother that was cheering him on crashing out, tragic loss of T-Daw P, from street wars that left bodies dropping to federal cases that tore the family apart. This is the untold story of how real gangsters raised a rap superstar who couldn't escape the very streets that made him. Stay locked in, gang, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why Pooh Shiesty never had a choice but to be exactly who he is. This family tree got roots deeper than any rap beef and branches that reach into every corner of Memphis's most dangerous neighborhoods. We're about to expose the real story behind one of hip-hop's most authentic voices. And trust me, the truth is wilder than any song he's ever recorded. Before we dive into the Shiesty family saga, you gotta understand the environment that shaped them. Memphis, Tennessee, specifically South Memphis, ain't just another hood. This city got a murder rate 7 times higher than the national average, with over 102 different gangs operating in a population of just 500,000 people. We're talking about a place where 14,000 residents are confirmed gang members. That's basically a small army spread across neighborhoods separated by railroad tracks that serve as territorial borders. South Memphis, where the Williams family planted their flag, stretches from Midtown all the way to the Mississippi state line. It's one of the oldest and poorest sections of the city, where your life expectancy drops by 20 years just based on your zip code. This is the breeding ground that produced legends like Yo Gotti, Young Dolph, and Moneybagg Yo. But it's also where families like the Williams learned that survival meant being willing to do whatever it takes. In Memphis, you either predator or prey, and the Shiesty family chose their side early. The city sits at the crossroads of 3 states, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi, making it a perfect hub for interstate drug trafficking. The I-55 corridor runs right through Memphis, connecting Chicago to New Orleans, and every major drug organization in the South has used this route at some point. For a family like the Williams, this geographical advantage was like having a highway to riches if you were smart enough and ruthless enough to capitalize on it. Memphis also has a unique gang culture. Unlike cities where one or two major sets dominate, Memphis is home to every national gang you can think of. Bloods, Crips, Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords, plus dozens of smaller neighborhood crews that operate independently. This creates a constantly shifting landscape of alliances and enemies, where today's partner could be tomorrow's target. Lontrell Williams Sr., the man who would become known as Mob Boss, was already making moves in South Memphis when he crossed paths with the woman who would become Pooh Shiesty's mother. Both were products of the same.
All right, we going in. You see it. Shiesty moms and the pops. They giving you this the story right here. They giving it. We giving it. Let's go.
Unforgiving streets. Both understood that in their world, loyalty was everything and weakness got you buried. The Memphis of the late 1990s was a different beast than today. The crack epidemic was still raging, and young hustlers like Mob Boss were learning that the drug game could make you rich or dead, sometimes both. He wasn't just some corner boy trying to make it. Homie had vision. While other dudes were focused on quick flips and street rep, he was building something bigger. Mob Boss understood something that many street dudes never figure out. Legitimacy was the key to longevity. He founded Mob Ties Records, his own independent label, understanding that music could be the perfect front for his real business operations. The label gave him a reason to travel, a way to explain large cash transactions.
Here on my waist, bitch. Henny on me, feel it in my face, bitch.
They came up here echoing.
Now, it's a gift we're giving, because in order to know somebody's present, you gotta know their past. So that's why we're here. We're going ahead and see.
When he met Pooh Shiesty's mother, she wasn't some naive girl who got caught up in a hustler's lifestyle. She was already connected to the streets, already understood the rules of the game. Their relationship wasn't built on romance and flowers. It was forged in mutual respect and shared understanding of what it took to survive in their environment. The couple set up shop in the Cane Creek Projects, right in the heart of South Memphis. This wasn't no suburban love story. This was two soldiers building an empire in a war zone. Their relationship was tested by federal investigations, rival crews trying to move in on their territory, and the constant stress of knowing that every day could be their last. But what made their bond special was their shared vision for their family. They both understood that the streets were a means to an end, not the end itself. They wanted to build something that could provide for their children and grandchildren, something that could survive even if they didn't. To understand Pooh Shiesty, you gotta understand his father. Mob Boss wasn't just playing gangster for the cameras. This man was certified in these streets. His operation was so sophisticated that it took federal agents months of surveillance to even begin understanding how deep his network ran. The nickname Mob Boss wasn't just clever marketing. It was earned through years of moving weight and commanding respect across Memphis. He had connections that reached from the Mississippi Delta to the Arkansas border, using the I-55 interstate as his personal highway for distribution. His network included truck drivers who could move product across state lines, corrupt officials who could provide advance warning of law enforcement activity, and street soldiers who were willing to die for the organization. Mob Boss's approach to the drug trade was methodical and business-minded. He understood that the biggest mistake most dealers make is getting high on their own supply, both literally and figuratively. While other crews were flashy with their money and violent with their enemies, Mob Boss operated more like a CEO than a street thug. He invested in real estate, using properties across South Memphis as stash houses and meeting spots. He had legitimate businesses that could explain his income and provide employment for his crew. Most importantly, he understood that the key to avoiding law enforcement was staying below their radar while still generating serious revenue. But Mob Boss's story takes a dark turn in 2004 when he got caught up in one of Memphis's most shocking murder cases. Rebecca Glenn, a 24-year-old radio DJ for Q107.5, was found strangled to death in her apartment. The killer was Stanley Andrews, but according to police reports, Mob Boss was charged as an accessory after the fact. Here's where it gets real twisted. Word on the streets was that Rebecca had been playing Yo Gotti's music on the radio, but refusing to give Mob Boss or his Mob Ties artists any airtime. In the Memphis music scene, radio play was everything. It was the difference between being a local hustler who rapped and being a legitimate artist who could make real money from music. Some say Mob Boss put a hit out on the DJ for the disrespect, though this was never proven in court. What we do know is that after Rebecca's murder, Mob Boss and a woman named Marquita Thomas were caught using the victim's credit cards and helping to sell her stolen possessions. The case sent shockwaves through Memphis. Stanley Andrews' own sister couldn't believe what her brother had done, telling Action News 5 that he called her from jail saying Rebecca went off on him for knocking on her door, so he just snapped. But Andrews showed no remorse, acting like someone who knew exactly what he was doing. The investigation revealed that Andrews had slipped past building security guards and was wandering the halls knocking on random doors. When Rebecca opened her door to see who was there, Andrews forced his way inside, wrapped his hands around her neck, and strangled her to death before robbing her apartment. Mob Boss caught accessory charges and first-degree forgery, but he managed to beat the worst of it with just a year of supervised probation. That light sentence should have been a wake-up call, but for a man like Mob Boss, the streets were calling too loud to ignore. The Rebecca Glenn case also highlighted the dangerous intersection between Memphis's music scene and its criminal underworld. Radio DJs had real power in determining which artists got exposure, and that power made them targets for anyone who felt disrespected or ignored. By 2007, Mob Boss was back to his old ways, but this time he was operating on a whole different level. He had set up a sophisticated drug operation out of an apartment at 784 Porter Street in Memphis, a spot that looked abandoned from the outside but was actually a fully functioning trap house. The location was strategically chosen. Porter Street was a dead-end road in a neighborhood where police presence was minimal and residents minded their own business. The apartment building itself looked run down and uninhabitable, which was exactly the point. Who would suspect?
Damn, hold up, man. Get this up in there. Damn. So they found this. Look at all the za over there. All the packs is lean, wax, 3 hammers, look at all the scales. I don't know what that thing is right there. These desire packs, pills, weed, lean. Look at all this. Wax. They got the cash. More drugs than cash, though.
That a major drug operation was running out of a place that looked like it should be condemned. The Memphis Police Department had been watching the location for months, documenting who came and went, tracking patterns, building their case. Detective Kittrell Robinson would later testify about the sophisticated surveillance operation they conducted before finally moving in with search warrants. They documented regular traffic at all hours of the day and night. Cars would pull up, someone would go inside for a few minutes, then leave. The pattern was consistent with a retail drug operation, but the volume suggested something much bigger than street-level dealing. Picture this scene. Cops bust through the front door, and immediately there's chaos. Mob Boss's cousin Rico Johnson tries to run from apartment 4 to apartment 3. And you can hear glass breaking as someone jumps out the kitchen window. But the wildest part? A 75-pound pit bull comes charging around the corner, going straight for the officer's necks. Detective Robinson had to shoot the animal 3 times before it retreated to the kitchen where it died. The pit bull wasn't just a pet, it was part of the security system.
Out there! What's up? Y'all want to be famous? Here you go!
Welcome to Slide TV, where everything is possible. I go by the name of Icy Graded Dawn Louis Vuitton Amazing Blue.
You got 48 hours. 48 hours to hit my jet, or I'll be back.
I mean, make a wish. All your dreams supposed to come true. You see that number. Wish what you want.
Used to want you, future, but no, I don't need ya. Close your heart off, you left it in a freezer. I just tried to give you all of me, cause of all the times you told me that you need love from me, but it's crazy how you couldn't do the same for me. When I need you most, you pull away from me. Seems like all you ever do is take from me. I cannot just give away my love for free. That shit really draining out my energy. I know that you not who you pretend to be. Girl, you put a wall up. We can't have no conversation, I can't even call you. Why you lift me up if you gon' leave and let it fall, yeah? Never knew that it would be like this, not at all.
Ferragamo Gucci around my way. Henny on me, feel it in my face. Can't forget 145 since I was made. Young and I was running from the Jakes, bitch. Ferragamo Gucci around my waist, bitch. Henny on me, feel it in my face, bitch. Can't forget what.
Welcome to Slide TV, where anything is possible. We've got updates, news, current events, music updates, interviews, and plenty of laughs and wisdom ahead. As we wait, please press the share and like buttons to help our channel grow, and don't be afraid to comment throughout the show. Thank you for tuning in with our amazing host, Icy Gray, the Don Louis Vuitton Amazing Blue.
And we back at it, y'all.
The drug trade, having a vicious dog, serves multiple purposes. It deters robbery attempts, warns of police raids, and can destroy evidence if trained properly. The fact that this dog was willing to attack armed police officers shows how well it was trained for protection. When the smoke cleared, police found a full operation. 12.5 grams of cocaine, 8 pounds of high-grade marijuana, digital scales on the kitchen counter, measuring cups by the stove for cooking crack, a Smith & Wesson on the couch, and $10,000 cash in mob boss's front pocket. This wasn't some small-time hustle. This was a professional operation with all the tools needed to process, package, and distribute serious weight. The fact that they had equipment for cooking crack shows Mob Boss was serving the full spectrum of the drug trade, from weed smokers to hardcore addicts. The digital scales were commercial grade, capable of measuring large quantities with precision. The measuring cups and cooking equipment showed they were processing raw cocaine into crack, which required knowledge of chemistry and cooking techniques. This wasn't amateur hour. This was a sophisticated manufacturing and distribution operation. The $10,000 in cash was just what Mob Boss had on him at the time of arrest. Investigators suspected that much larger amounts of money were moved through the operation regularly, but they were never able to locate the main stash. The apartment itself was set up like a fortress. There were multiple escape routes, reinforced doors, and security cameras that could monitor approaching vehicles. The operation had clearly been planned by someone who understood both the drug trade and law enforcement tactics. While Mob Boss was making headlines for his legal troubles, Pooh Shiesty's mother was holding down her own reputation in the streets. This wasn't no innocent bystander caught up in her man's business. She was a certified gangster in her own right. The streets of Memphis don't respect weakness, and any woman standing next to a man like Mob Boss had to prove she could handle whatever came with that position. She understood the game, understood the risks, and understood that in their world, family loyalty meant everything. Growing up in South Memphis, she had seen what happened to women who couldn't protect themselves or their families. She had watched mothers lose their children to the streets, wives get disrespected by their husbands' enemies, and families torn apart by violence and incarceration. She was determined that wouldn't be her story. When Mob Boss was facing federal time, she made sure the family stayed together. She managed the money, maintained relationships with key players in their organization, and kept their reputation intact while he was fighting his case. This required a level of street intelligence and political skill that most people never develop. She also had to protect her children during this time. Young Pooh Shiesty was watching everything, learning from every interaction, absorbing lessons about loyalty, respect, and survival. She made sure he understood that their family was different, that they had a legacy to uphold and a standard to maintain. When Mob Boss was locked up, she kept his name ringing in the streets. She made sure their enemies knew that the organization was still operational, still dangerous, still not to be tested. This required her to make decisions that most people would never have to face, to authorize actions that could have life or death consequences. Her influence on Pooh Shiesty can't be understated. While Mob Boss taught him about the business side of the streets, his mother taught him about survival, about loyalty, about never showing weakness even when the world is trying to break you down. She also understood the importance of education and legitimate opportunities. Even while managing a criminal organization, she made sure Pooh Shiesty stayed in school and understood that the streets were a means to an end, not the end itself. The respect she commanded in Memphis was earned through years of proving herself in situations where one wrong move could have gotten her and her family killed. She navigated federal investigations, rival crews, and internal betrayals while keeping her family intact and her organization profitable. Before we talk about Pooh Shiesty's rise, we gotta address the family's most devastating loss. T.P., Pooh Shiesty's older brother, was more than just family. He was Pooh's role model, his inspiration, and the person who showed him what it meant to be a Williams. T.P. was already making moves in the streets when Pooh Shiesty was still figuring out his path. He had that natural charisma and street intelligence that runs in the family, and everyone who knew him could see he was destined for something big. Unlike many young men in their neighborhood, T.P. had the rare combination of street credibility and business sense that could have taken him far. He was the bridge between Mob Boss's old-school approach to the game and the new generation's methods. While his father relied on traditional drug trafficking and territorial control, T.P. understood that the future was in diversification. Music, legitimate businesses, and building wealth that couldn't be seized by law enforcement. T.P. was also deeply involved in Choppa Gang's early operations. He helped plan their most successful licks, provided strategic guidance for their territorial expansion, and served as a mentor for younger members who looked up to the Williams family name. But life in Memphis is unpredictable.
Bitch, I'm in the trap, you know I'm packing, I mean big business.
With brain cancer. This wasn't the kind of enemy you could shoot back at or outrun. This was a battle that required a different kind of strength. The diagnosis came suddenly. The diagnosis came suddenly. T.P. had been experiencing headaches and vision problems, but in their world, you don't show weakness or admit when something's wrong. By the time he finally went to a doctor, the cancer had already progressed to an advanced stage. For months, T.P. fought with everything he had. The family rallied around him, hoping for a miracle, praying for more time. They brought in the best doctors money could buy, explored experimental treatments, and exhausted every possible option. Pooh Shiesty watched his hero, his big brother, slowly losing a fight that no amount of street credibility could help him win. It was a humbling experience for a young man who had been raised to believe that violence and money could solve any problem. The medical bills were enormous, even for a family with significant resources. The treatments required travel to specialized facilities, experimental drugs that weren't covered by insurance, and round-the-clock care that drained both their finances and their emotional reserves. During this time, Pooh Shiesty's music career was just beginning to take off. The success of his early tracks should have been a celebration, but instead, it was overshadowed by his brother's deteriorating condition. Every milestone in his career was bittersweet, knowing that T.P. might not be there to see him reach his full potential. When T.P. finally lost his battle in January 2021, it broke something inside Pooh Shiesty. On his track No Chorus, you can hear the pain in his voice when he raps. On God, I shed a tear every time I think about T.P., but no, I won't display my feelings. That's another side of me. The timing made it even more painful. T.P. died right in the middle of Pooh Shiesty's beef with EBG, and his enemies tried to use his brother's death as ammunition for their diss tracks. EBG Jizzle even dropped a song called Paralyzed right after T.P.'s death, with lyrics telling Pooh Shiesty he needed to go pray for his brother. That level of disrespect during a time of grief showed Pooh Shiesty exactly.
Let me see. So we got Shiesty right here, right? We know about, let me see, to draw it all up, the mother and father he come from. Then we got the other brother. Let's see what they're talking about.
And South Memphis crews had been fighting for decades over control of the most profitable corners and the right to tax independent dealers operating in disputed areas. EBG had established themselves as one of the dominant forces in North Memphis through a combination of violence and business acumen. They controlled several high-traffic drug corners, had connections to major suppliers, and maintained discipline within their ranks through fear and respect. Choppa Gang represented a new generation of Memphis criminals who didn't respect the old territorial boundaries. They believed that money was there for anyone smart and ruthless enough to take it, regardless of what neighborhood they came from or which crew had traditionally controlled an area. The conflict escalated when Pooh Shiesty and his crew allegedly ran down on EBG's territory and robbed them for guns and drugs. This wasn't just about money. It was about disrespect, about showing EBG that Choppa Gang could violate their space whenever they wanted. According to street sources, the robbery was planned for weeks. Choppa Gang members conducted surveillance on EBG's main stash house, learning the schedules of guards, identifying security weaknesses, and planning multiple escape routes. When they finally moved, it was with overwhelming force designed to minimize resistance. The robbery itself was executed with military precision. Choppa Gang members surrounded the location, neutralized security, and made off with a significant quantity of weapons and drugs before EBG could mount an effective response. The message was clear. The old rules no longer applied, and Choppa Gang was willing to take whatever they wanted. When Pooh Shiesty dropped Back in Blood with Lil Durk, he included the line, "Yeah, you know who took that shit from you, come get it back in blood." To most listeners, it sounded like typical rap braggadocio, but EBG knew exactly what he was talking about, and they couldn't let that level of disrespect slide. The song became a worldwide hit, reaching number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100 and generating hundreds of millions of streams. For EBG, this meant that their humiliation was being broadcast to millions of people around the world. Every time someone played the song, they were essentially celebrating EBG's defeat. EBG E Jizzle, who wasn't even really a rapper, felt forced to respond. He dropped a remix to Back in Blood, where he told his side of the story, claiming that Pooh Shiesty was exaggerating what really happened and that the robbery wasn't as significant as the song made it seem. In the remix, E Jizzle claimed that Choppa Gang had only stolen a small amount of drugs and a few guns, and that no one was home during the robbery. He portrayed Pooh Shiesty as someone who was trying to build a reputation off of minor incidents, inflating small victories into major conquests. But Pooh Shiesty wasn't backing down. He posted on social media that EBG had made the worst mistake they ever made by responding to his song. He bragged about getting 18 million views without even mentioning their names, and warned them that things were about to get much worse. The beef reached its peak when E Jizzle was shot 3 times in the arm just days after dropping his second diss track, Rumors. Pooh Shiesty immediately took to social media, posting cryptic messages like, "Damn that Nene diss, now he can't even walk," and "Fake walking, I don't even think bro talking." The shooting happened in broad daylight on a busy North Memphis street. According to witnesses, E Jizzle was walking to his car when a vehicle pulled up and someone opened fire. The shooter was wearing a mask and fled immediately after the attack, but the message was clear. There were consequences for disrespecting Choppa Gang. E Jizzle survived the shooting and came back with another diss track called Paralyzed, where he claimed that whoever shot him had a clear shot on my face and still went for my arm, suggesting they were trying to send a message rather than kill him. The ongoing beef created a climate of fear in Memphis. Members of both crews were constantly looking over their shoulders, knowing that any public appearance could result in violence. The conflict also drew in other crews who had alliances with either side, expanding what started as a dispute between two organizations into a citywide war. Before the EBG war fully popped off, Pooh Shiesty had already established himself as someone who didn't tolerate disrespect from any Memphis rapper. His beef with Big Boogie started over something that might seem small to outsiders, but in Memphis, respect is everything. Big Boogie, who signed to Yo Gotti's CMG label, made the mistake of claiming on Instagram Live that he was a better rapper than Pooh Shiesty. In most cities, that might just be competitive talk between artists. In Memphis, that's a direct challenge that demands a response. The comment came during a period when Pooh Shiesty was just starting to gain national attention. His early tracks were doing numbers locally, but he hadn't yet broken through to mainstream success. For an established artist like Big Boogie to dismiss him publicly was seen as an attempt to stunt his growth and keep him in his place. Pooh Shiesty and Big 30 immediately pulled up on Big Boogie's live session, confronting him about his comments. The exchange got heated, with Pooh Shiesty claiming that when he pulled up to Big Boogie's neighborhood, Boogie ran away scared. According to Pooh Shiesty's version of events, he had actually driven to Fraser, Big Boogie's neighborhood in North Memphis, looking for a face-to-face confrontation. When Big Boogie saw him coming, he allegedly fled rather than handle the situation like a man. Big Boogie denied this version of events, claiming that he had never met Pooh Shiesty in person and didn't understand why there was beef between them, saying that he didn't have any real problems with Pooh Shiesty and that the whole thing was being blown out of proportion. To make the disrespect even more personal, Pooh Shiesty created his own brand of weed called Red Rum, the same name as Big Boogie's crew. That way, he could literally say he was smoking on that red rum pack and mean it. This was a level of pettiness that showed how seriously Pooh Shiesty took any form of disrespect. The weed packaging featured graphics that mocked Big Boogie and his crew, and Pooh Shiesty made sure to promote it heavily on social media. Every time someone bought his red rum strain, they were participating in the disrespect of Big Boogie's organization. The situation reached a tragic climax on July 12, 2020, when Big Boogie was performing at a concert in Como, Mississippi. During his performance, gunfire erupted. Over 50 shots from 5 different weapons. Big Boogie wasn't hit, but 2 people were killed. 19-year-old Jasmine Bradshaw and 37-year-old Elvie Wilborn. The shooting was clearly planned and coordinated. 5 different weapons suggested multiple shooters working together, and the volume of gunfire indicated that this wasn't a random act of violence. Someone had come to that concert with the specific intention of killing Big Boogie. Jasmine Bradshaw, one of the victims, was reportedly Big Boogie's pregnant girlfriend. She was on stage with him when the shooting started, making her death particularly tragic. The fact that she was carrying his child added another layer of devastation to an already horrific situation. While many suspected the shooting was retaliation for the beef with Pooh Shiesty, he went on Instagram Live to deny any involvement, saying their issues weren't that deep. Whether he was telling the truth or just protecting himself legally, the message was clear. Beefing with Pooh Shiesty could have deadly consequences. The denial was strategic, but not entirely convincing. The timing of the shooting, coming just weeks after their public beef, suggested a connection that was hard to ignore. However, without concrete evidence linking Pooh Shiesty to the attack, law enforcement was unable to pursue charges. The incident also highlighted the dangerous intersection between rap beef and real street violence. What starts as competitive banter between artists can quickly escalate into life-or-death situations when the artists involved have genuine street credibility and access to weapons. Pooh Shiesty didn't start rapping with dreams of fame and fortune. Music was just another hustle, another way to generate income for Choppa Gang. His first recorded verse actually appeared on Big 30's track Breaking News in 2018, where you could hear the raw talent that would later make him a star. The song was recorded at a local Memphis studio using money that Choppa Gang had made from their street activities. The beat was simple, the production was basic, but Pooh Shiesty's verse stood out immediately. His flow was natural, his lyrics were authentic, and his delivery had an intensity that couldn't be faked. Breaking News was uploaded to YouTube with minimal promotion, but it quickly gained traction in Memphis. Local DJs started playing it, other rappers began taking notice, and fans started asking who the young rapper with the distinctive voice was. His official debut single, Hell Night, featuring Big Dirty, showed that Pooh Shiesty had found his unique sound, a gritty, menacing flow that perfectly matched the violent content of his lyrics. The music video, shot by SMB Films, racked up over 6 million views and put Memphis on notice that a new star was rising. The video was filmed in the same neighborhoods where Pooh Shiesty had grown up and committed his crimes. Viewers could see the Cane Creek projects in the background, the same streets where he had learned to survive, the same corners where Choppa Gang conducted their business. What made Pooh Shiesty's music different from other Memphis rappers was its authenticity. While many artists exaggerated their criminal activities for entertainment value, Pooh Shiesty was actually living the life he rapped about. His lyrics weren't fantasies, they were confessions. But it was Back in Blood with Lil Durk that changed everything. Recorded at Savage Inc.'s studio in Atlanta, the collaboration happened almost by accident. Pooh Shiesty laid down his hook and verse, then ran it over to Durk in another studio room. Durk listened once and dropped his verse within 5 minutes. The chemistry between the two artists was immediate and undeniable. Durk's melodic style complemented Pooh Shiesty's aggressive delivery perfectly, creating a track that appealed to both street audiences and mainstream listeners. The song was released on November 6, 2020, the same day King Von was killed in Atlanta. While the hip-hop world was focused on that tragedy, Back in Blood quietly began its climb up the charts. The track eventually peaked at number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 6 on the Hip Hop Hot 100, doing hundreds of millions of streams. The success of Back in Blood opened doors that Pooh Shiesty had never imagined. Record labels started calling, booking agents wanted to schedule shows, and other major artists began reaching out for collaborations. Suddenly, the young man from Cane Creek Projects was being courted by some of the biggest names in hip-hop. Gucci Mane's 1017 label was the perfect fit for Pooh Shiesty's style and image. Gucci understood authentic street music better than most executives, having lived that life himself before becoming a rap legend. He saw in Pooh Shiesty the same raw talent and genuine street credibility that had made his own career possible. The signing to 1017 came with a major label deal through Atlantic Records, giving Pooh Shiesty access to resources and promotion that independent artists could only dream of. Suddenly, he had a team of professionals working to maximize his potential and expand his audience. For Pooh Shiesty, the success was validation that his authentic street stories could translate into mainstream success. He wasn't changing his content or softening his image. He was getting paid millions to be exactly who he'd always been. Success brought Pooh Shiesty the kind of money he'd only dreamed about during his days running the streets. His debut mixtape, Shiesty Season, peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200, selling over 60,000 copies in its first week. Suddenly, the young man from Cane Creek Projects was earning more in a month than most people see in a lifetime. The financial transformation was immediate and dramatic. Pooh Shiesty went from counting thousands to counting millions, from worrying about making rent to buying multiple properties, from stealing cars to collecting luxury vehicles. One of the first things Pooh Shiesty did with his newfound wealth was take care of his family. He bought his parents a house, making sure they could live comfortably without having to worry about the dangers of the streets. For a family that had struggled through poverty, federal cases, and constant violence, this represented a kind of security they'd never known. The house was more than just a symbol of success. It was a fortress. Located in an upscale neighborhood far from the projects where they had grown up, it featured state-of-the-art security systems, bulletproof windows, and multiple escape routes. Even in success, the Williams family understood that their enemies hadn't forgotten about them. Gucci Mane's 1017 label gave Pooh Shiesty the platform and resources to reach a global audience, but he never forgot where he came from. He brought his cousin Big Scar into the music business, getting him signed to the same label despite Big Scar having no previous rap experience. Big Scar's signing was controversial within the industry. Critics argued that he was only getting a deal because of his family connection to Pooh Shiesty, not because of his talent or potential. But Pooh Shiesty didn't care about the criticism. Loyalty was more important than public opinion. The money also allowed Pooh Shiesty to live the lifestyle he'd always wanted. Expensive cars, designer clothes, jewelry that cost more than most people's houses. His Instagram feed became a showcase of wealth and excess, with photos of diamond chains, luxury watches, and exotic cars. But the lifestyle came with its own dangers. The more wealth Pooh Shiesty displayed publicly, the bigger target he became for robbery attempts. Other criminals saw his success as an opportunity, and law enforcement saw his spending as evidence of ongoing criminal activity. The jewelry alone was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Custom chains, diamond-encrusted watches, and grills that cost more than luxury cars became part of his public image. But each piece also represented a security risk, making him a target every time he appeared in public. The cars were equally impressive and equally dangerous. McLarens, Lamborghinis, and other exotic vehicles that cost more than most people's houses became regular features in his music videos and social media posts. But driving such expensive cars in Memphis made him a target for carjackers and kidnappers. Despite the risks, Pooh Shiesty refused to tone down his lifestyle. He had grown up with nothing, and he was determined to enjoy every aspect of his success. The money represented more than just wealth. It was proof that he had escaped the cycle of poverty and violence that had trapped previous generations of his family. But with great wealth came great responsibility, and the same streets that had made him were watching to see if success would change him. The question wasn't whether he could make money. He had already proven that. The question was whether he could keep it and stay alive long enough to enjoy it. Despite having millions of dollars and a promising music career, Pooh Shiesty couldn't leave the streets alone. The same mentality that had helped him survive in Memphis was now threatening to destroy everything he had built. On October 9, 2021, he found himself in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, involved in a transaction that would change his life forever. According to police reports, Pooh Shiesty and 2 associates drove to the location in a green McLaren to meet with 2 men who were selling sneakers and marijuana. The sellers also expected to collect rent money for the McLaren that Pooh Shiesty had been driving. The meeting was supposed to be routine business. Pooh Shiesty needed to buy some high-end sneakers for an upcoming music video, and the sellers had a reputation for having authentic, hard-to-find merchandise. The marijuana was secondary, just something extra to make the trip worthwhile. But something went wrong during the transaction. According to the victim's statements, Shiesty and his associates decided to rob them instead of paying for the merchandise. What should have been a simple business transaction turned into a nightmare. Surveillance video shows the green McLaren pulling into the parking lot, followed by a Mercedes carrying the sellers. Multiple people can be seen standing around, apparently conducting normal business. Then suddenly everything goes wrong. Shiesty's associates pulled out a Draco and another handgun, shooting both sellers. One victim was hit in the buttocks, the other was shot while trying to run back to his Mercedes. The shooting was quick but brutal, leaving both victims wounded and traumatized. The most damning evidence? Shiesty and his crew fled the scene but left behind a Louis Vuitton bag containing over $30,000 in cash. Police were able to match serial numbers on some of the bills to photos Shiesty had posted on social media, directly linking him to the crime scene. The abandoned money bag suggested that the robbery wasn't planned. If Shiesty had intended to rob the sellers, he wouldn't have brought $30,000 in cash to the meeting. Something had gone wrong during the transaction, leading to a spontaneous decision to use violence instead of paying. But that wasn't the only incident. On May 30th, 2021, Shiesty was at King of Diamonds strip club in Miami when $40,000 allegedly fell from his waistline. When other patrons rushed to grab the money, Shiesty became enraged. The King of Diamonds incident revealed the dangerous intersection between Shiesty's street mentality and his newfound wealth. In his mind, the money belonged to him regardless of how it had ended up on the floor. Anyone who took it was essentially robbing him, and robbery demanded a violent response. Security tried to remove him from the club when he became aggressive, but Shiesty wasn't going quietly. During the altercation, he allegedly shot a security guard in the leg, turning a minor incident into a felony assault case. The shooting happened in front of dozens of witnesses, including other celebrities and their entourages. Cell phone videos captured parts of the incident, providing law enforcement with clear evidence of Shiesty's involvement. There was also a third incident that received less attention but was equally revealing. On July 7, 2020, Shiesty was charged with discharging a firearm from a vehicle at a gas station. According to police reports, he had gotten into an argument with someone and decided to settle it with gunfire. The pattern was clear. Despite having more money than he'd ever dreamed of, Shiesty was still operating with the same street mentality that had gotten him out of the projects. He couldn't separate the person who had survived Memphis from the artist who was supposed to represent a better future. Each incident showed a man who had never learned to walk away from conflict. In the streets, backing down from a challenge could get you killed. But in the legitimate world, every confrontation didn't require violence, and every slight didn't demand retaliation. The irony was that Shiesty had achieved everything he had ever wanted: money, fame, respect, and the ability to take care of his family. But the same qualities that had made his success possible were now threatening to destroy it. The Bay Harbor Island shooting resulted in serious federal charges: armed robbery with a firearm, aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, aggravated assault with a firearm, and theft. Initially facing up to 20 years in prison, Shiesty eventually accepted a plea deal that would sentence him to 63 months, just over 5 years. The federal charges were particularly serious because they involved firearms and interstate commerce. The fact that Shiesty had traveled from one state to another to commit the crimes made them federal offenses, which typically carry harsher sentences than state charges. His lawyer, Bradford Cohen, who had previously defended Lil Wayne and Kodak Black on federal gun charges, tried to discredit the victims' testimonies. The defense pointed out inconsistencies in their stories and questioned their credibility as drug dealers who had been robbed. Cohen argued that the victims were unreliable witnesses because they were involved in illegal drug sales and had motivation to lie about what really happened. He suggested that they might have been trying to rob Shiesty and that the shooting was actually self-defense. The defense also highlighted the fact that Shiesty had left $30,000 at the scene, arguing that this proved he hadn't intended to rob anyone. If robbery had been the plan, they argued, he wouldn't have brought so much cash to the meeting. But the prosecution had strong evidence, including surveillance video that clearly showed the shooting and social media posts that linked Shiesty to the money found at the scene. The case against him was solid, and his legal team eventually advised him to accept a plea deal. The judge initially granted Shiesty a $30,000 bond, which he posted immediately. He and his associates boarded a private jet and left Florida, but the legal troubles followed him. When he was arrested for the King of Diamonds shooting, his bond was revoked and he was forced to sit in jail until his trial concluded. The King of Diamonds case added another layer of complexity to his legal situation. Now he was facing charges in multiple jurisdictions for separate incidents, making it much harder to negotiate favorable plea deals. The prosecution in the King of Diamonds case had even stronger evidence, including multiple witnesses and cell phone videos that clearly showed Pooh Shiesty shooting the security guard. The incident had happened in a crowded nightclub with dozens of cameras, making it impossible to deny his involvement. On January 3, 2023, Pooh Shiesty was sentenced to 63 months in federal prison. The judge also ordered 3 years of supervised release, during which he cannot associate with known gang members or co-defendants. He's also required to complete an alcohol treatment programs. The supervised release conditions are particularly restrictive for someone with Pooh Shiesty's background. He's prohibited from associating with any members of Choppa Gang, which includes some of his closest friends and family members. He also cannot travel without permission from his probation officer. For a 23-year-old at the peak of his career, 5 years represents a significant portion of his prime earning years. The hip-hop industry moves fast, and artists who disappear for extended periods often struggle to regain their momentum. The financial impact of his incarceration extends beyond lost earnings. Legal fees for high-profile federal cases can easily reach into the millions, and Pooh Shiesty's team of experienced attorneys didn't come cheap. Federal prison is a different world from the streets of Memphis, but Pooh Shiesty has adapted the same way his family taught him to adapt to any environment. He's used his time to reflect on the decisions that led him there and to plan for his eventual return to society. The federal prison system is designed to break down inmates psychologically and rebuild them according to institutional standards. For someone like Pooh Shiesty, who had never been controlled by anyone, the adjustment was particularly difficult. The daily routine is strictly regimented. Wake-up calls, meal times, work assignments, and recreation periods are all scheduled and monitored. Inmates who violate rules face punishment that can extend their sentences or restrict their privileges. But Pooh Shiesty has found ways to make his time productive. He's been working on new music, writing lyrics, and developing concepts for future projects. The isolation has given him time to think about his craft in ways that weren't possible when he was constantly dealing with street drama and legal problems. Even while incarcerated, Pooh Shiesty has maintained his relevance in the hip-hop world. His team has continued releasing music, including the project Shiesty Season Certified, which features collaborations with Gucci Mane, Lil Durk, and Jack Harlow. The continued success of his music while he's locked up proves that his fan base remains loyal and that his brand is strong enough to survive his absence. Streaming numbers have remained high, and his social media accounts continue to gain followers. The prison experience has also given him perspective on the cycle of violence and incarceration that has affected his family for generations. His father, Mob Boss, served federal time, and now Pooh Shiesty is following the same path. The question is whether he'll be able to break that cycle when he's released. Letters and interviews from prison suggest that Pooh Shiesty understands the gravity of his situation. He's expressed regret for the pain his actions caused to the victims and their families, while also acknowledging that his choices were influenced by a lifetime of conditioning in an environment where violence was normalized. The time in prison has also allowed him to reconnect with his family in ways that weren't possible when he was constantly traveling and performing. Regular phone calls and visits have strengthened his relationships with his parents and surviving siblings, but prison has also hardened him in some ways. The federal system is full of dangerous people, and survival requires constant vigilance. Pooh Shiesty has had to prove himself all over again in an environment where his fame and money mean nothing. Pooh Shiesty's release date is projected for 2027, assuming good behavior and completion of required programs. When he returns to society, he'll face the challenge of rebuilding his career while staying out of trouble. The hip-hop industry will be watching to see if prison changed him or if he'll return to the same patterns that led to his incarceration. His team has worked to maintain his brand and fan base during his absence. But the real test will come when he's back on the streets with access to the same temptations that derailed his career. The music industry has changed significantly during his incarceration. New artists have emerged, streaming platforms have evolved, and fan preferences have shifted. Pooh Shiesty will need to adapt to these changes while staying true to the authentic style that made him famous. His family's influence will likely play a major role in his transition. Mob Boss, now older and presumably wiser, may be able to provide guidance on how to enjoy success without falling back into criminal behavior. His mother's strength and loyalty will continue to be a stabilizing force. The tragedy of Tita P's death serves as a reminder that life is fragile and that the opportunity to build something positive shouldn't be wasted. Pooh Shiesty has the chance to honor his brother's memory by using his platform to create rather than destroy. The supervised release conditions will make his transition more challenging. He'll be prohibited from associating with many of his old friends and will need to build a new support network of people who aren't involved in criminal activity. But Pooh Shiesty also has advantages that many ex-convicts don't have. He has a legitimate career waiting for him, financial resources to support his transition, and a fan base that's eager for his return. If he can stay focused on his music and avoid the temptations of the streets, he has the potential to become even more successful than before. The question is whether he's learned from his mistakes or if he'll repeat the same patterns that led to his downfall. Prison can either rehabilitate or embitter inmates, and only time will tell which effect it's had on Pooh Shiesty. His return will also be closely watched by law enforcement. Any hint of criminal activity will likely result in immediate arrest and a return to prison. The stakes couldn't be higher for his second chance at freedom. The story of the Shiesty family is ultimately about the cycle of violence and poverty that traps generations in the same destructive patterns. Mob Boss's criminal career led to Pooh Shiesty's criminal career, despite the opportunities that music success provided. But it's also a story about loyalty, survival, and the unbreakable bonds that hold families together through the worst circumstances. The Williams family has faced murder charges, federal cases, tragic deaths, and long prison sentences, but they've never broken. The family's influence on Memphis's criminal and musical landscape cannot be understated. Mob Boss helped establish the template for combining legitimate music businesses with illegal drug operations. Pooh Shiesty proved that authentic street stories could translate into mainstream success. Their story also illustrates the challenges facing young people who grow up in environments where violence is normalized and criminal activity is seen as the only path to success. Despite having every advantage that money could buy, Pooh Shiesty couldn't escape the conditioning of his childhood. The tragedy is that the same qualities that made the family successful in the streets, loyalty, fearlessness, willingness to use violence, are the same qualities that ultimately led to their downfall. They were too authentic for their own good, too real for a world that rewards image over substance. Pooh Shiesty's story isn't over. He has the opportunity to be the family member who finally breaks the cycle, who uses his talents and resources to build something lasting and positive. Whether he takes that opportunity or repeats the mistakes of previous generations remains to be seen. What's certain is that the streets of Memphis will be watching when he comes home. The same environment that created him will be waiting to see if success and incarceration have changed him, or if he's still the same young man who is willing to risk everything for respect and money. The Shiesty family raised a rap star, but they also raised a young man who couldn't escape the very streets that made him. That's the real tragedy and the real challenge. How do you honor where you came from without being destroyed by it? For Pooh Shiesty, that question will define the rest of his life. The family that raised him gave him the tools to survive in the most dangerous environment in America. Now he has to decide whether those same tools can help him build a better future, or if they'll continue to be instruments of his own destruction. The Shiesty legacy is still being written, and the next chapter starts when Pooh Shiesty walks out of federal prison. Whether it's a story of redemption or repeated mistakes will depend on the lessons he's learned and the choices he makes when the streets come calling again. The Williams family name will always be associated with Memphis street culture, but it doesn't have to be associated with tragedy. Pooh Shiesty has the chance to redefine what it means to be a Shiesty, to show that success doesn't have to come at the cost of freedom or life. That's the real test of his character and the ultimate measure of his family's legacy. Can they break the cycle that has defined them for generations? Or are they destined to repeat the same mistakes until there's nothing left but memories and regrets? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. The Shiesty family story is far from over, and the next chapter could be the most important one yet.
Shout out to Slide TV.
Welcome to Slide TV, where anything is possible.
So you thinking